One thing I'm gonna dog on, but kind of forgive for it because it's still a dope movie and I love it, but I'm also still gonna dog on it. The age of every high schooler in this movie. Let's start it off. Tobey Maguire, 27. There you go. That's okay. No. I get Toby does kind of have a baby face, but you could just tell, dude. Like, he's not this age. He's really not. And I know, like, in the third Karate Kid, freaking Ralph Macchio was way above the age that he was supposed to be, his character. They started Toby way too young, man. Like, he's got a baby face and that's about it. Everything else just screams adult to me. Dude, he wears an adult coat. Like, no 18-year-old has a coat like that. No. I'm sorry. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hess Project. I'm John Ordalaza, and as we're leaving October and dipping our toes into November, we're ending the Hezween event, the first ever, and I had a lot of fun reviewing those movies. Some of them I've seen for the first time now, and it was kind of enjoyable. I'm not gonna lie. I did dislike a handful of them, but it was still fun to watch new things. It's a breath of fresh air, regardless if it's a terrible experience or not. It can be exciting to watch something new. So go check out those videos. I reviewed Halloween 1978, the 2018 sequel, then Halloween Kills, as well as Friday the 13th, Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and I believe this video is coming out before my review on Halloween Day for A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original 1984 Wes Craven directed film. Go check that out whenever it drops. It's gonna be a fun video, trust me. But today, we are starting the road to Spider-Man No Way Home, the third film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sony Spider-Verse. And we're starting that road by reviewing all the Spider-Man films. Today, we are talking about Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man. I wanna say out there real quick, there might be a smidge of bias because this is a movie I grew up with. I was a big Spider-Man fanboy growing up when I was like little. I had the blankets, I had the action figures, I had the video games. Needless to say, me and Spider-Man were kind of tight growing up. I love the vibe of this film, and especially growing up with the films, and then just in the last year or so, I watched Sam Raimi's Evil Dead franchise. And I'll do a review for those at some point in a later date, so stay tuned for that. But I loved the horror elements that Sam Raimi interjected into a comic book film, especially with getting bitten by a spider and how creepy that can be, and all the changes your body goes through. You don't just get washboard abs, no, you get the prickly things out of your fingers to help you climb walls pretty well. And that scene, just when they focused on them growing out of his fingertips. I mean, Peter didn't really freak out. He kind of just went with it and started climbing the wall. You know the music, yeah. That reminded me, Danny Elfman composed the music for this film, and it's a great track. It's a great theme song for Spider-Man. He also composed the music for the original 1989 Tim Burton Batman, and that's also a really freaking great theme. He's really good at it. He's really good at encapsulating a hero and what they represent in just one 3-minute theme. I don't know how long it is exactly, but you know what I mean. The theme that Elfman composes for Spider-Man in this film is nothing short of heroic, and it really just adds to all the scenes, the cinematography, and the action that it just makes for a really fun experience for the eyes and the ears. I want to talk about a handful of scenes that are my personal favorites from the film, and I'm talking about the Green Goblin and Spider-Man showdown in the house that's on fire, the apartment building on fire. That is just a really great action set piece. I love that, dude. It doesn't look cheesy when he starts to dodge the knives or whatever, the flying knives. It doesn't look too cheesy. I think that's like inspired from Matrix. I haven't seen Matrix yet, so stay tuned for that. But I really did appreciate that aesthetic. I loved that fight. It was just real gritty and raw, and that was another thing I loved about this film. All the action is real and it has grit to it, unlike some of these other clean Marvel movies that look really cool, don't get me wrong. These fights in this movie, man, they're something else. I don't know how to explain them. They're dirty, they're raw, visceral, and I just love that. It feels personal. So the burning building fight scene was one of my favorites, and also the end fight scene between Goblin and Spider-Man was as well, when they're just in this dark area. It's nighttime, and there's this destroyed building next to them. It's got a dusty brick wall. They kick each other through the brick wall. They get dirt and crap all over them, and it feels gross. And on multiple occasions watching this as a kid, I felt so uncomfortable. I don't think the Goblin costume is as cheesy as some people say it is nowadays. Like, I get it. The head can be a little extra, but I love the design of it, and like the eyes, how they're kind of just like sliders, and the mouth is open, but there's kind of like this mesh piece that's covering his mouth, and sometimes in a bright scene you can kind of see his mouth moving. That's the best that they could have done. Well, like, I wouldn't have wanted like a whole CGI Green Goblin from 2002. I don't want to dog on it too much because they used it pretty sparingly and effectively. They still do these types of tricks nowadays in films where they'll have CGI heavy stuff going on in a dark lit scene, but they had to hide it back then, because there's a scene right after Peter sees that Uncle Ben is killed in here, which, by the way, still a tearjerker so many years later. It still is able to tug at the heartstrings. Very few words are spoken in that scene, because his final words to Peter were already said to him in that car scene when he said, "With great power comes great responsibility." I know that line is so overdone and played out through so many things. It's kind of an iconic line, but because it's really good. It does make sense. I like it. But I just found a new appreciation for it for this film and how they used it. The second Uncle Ben says it to Peter, he kind of just ignores it almost. He goes off to say what he said, and then eventually says, "Stop pretending to be my father." And then he goes to, fight Macho Man Randy Savage. Then after the fight, his uncle's dead now. His uncle is dead. It's because he was acting reckless. He let the one robber go by for the one dude who cut him short of money, because all he cared about was money in that moment. I understand he got screwed, but he cared about money and money alone in that moment, and it led to his demise. That robber that he let go took his uncle's life, and his final words he already said to him in the car, and he wasn't paying attention. So in an act of rage, he goes out to chase after the robber. And wow, I really went off a tangent because I didn't want to talk about bad CGI. So this scene, he's running in the dark alley, puts on the wrestling mask, and he starts climbing the walls, and it cuts to what it looks to be in a complete CG world, a CGI Spider-Man climbing walls and hopping off like very quickly, unrealistically. Plus, if the movie was bad, then I would really dog on that, but the movie's really good, so I'm gonna forgive it. As much as I love Peter and MJ, played by Kirsten Dunst in this movie, she's really good. As much as I love those two interacting with one another, their interactions are just so adult-like. Their vocabulary and how they're able to carry themselves in a conversation just does not scream 18-year-old to me. It screams, you're 27, you're also in your 20s, I didn't check, but you definitely aren't 18. But for the sake of getting good performances and being able to have that delivery that you wanted, I understand sort of why you would cast out of age characters to play younger than themselves in real life. I understand that, but we're getting to the age nowadays where we're kind of not doing that, or at least it's not that big of a gap. Like, Tom Holland played Spider-Man in 2016, and I believe he was 19 years old, so that's not terrible. He still looks very young today, so they can pull it off with him now. Like, he really doesn't have that Tobey look. To wrap it up, all the jokes aside and the little nitpicks that I have to this day, yeah, so everyone was the same age as their teacher in the high school field trip. So what? It doesn't matter. Everyone played the parts very well. I think Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, and James Franco did great jobs as their roles in the film. I love every time I see them together. They're just a fun trio, and it just gets even better for me in the next two films. Yes, all three, you heard me correctly. We'll get to those two at a later date. There's a specialty to this film that we just don't get in comic book movies today. Everything feels like it's got to be connected, and we got to take time to explain the connections, and we just don't get time to live in the world. And I feel like regardless of the age, the real life ages of all these high schoolers, even the extras, dude, I mean, come on. I still think Sam Raimi was able to pull off this world that Spider-Man lives in, this comic book accurate New York City with the Green Goblin, with Harry Osborn, with Mary Jane Watson, and with Peter Parker, and his duality with Spider-Man, and that amazing ending that I also have just a greater appreciation of nowadays, when she finally admits her love to him. Like, she just says it. I love you so much. Peter kisses him. It's what he's wanted since the beginning of the movie, but now he's been cursed with this burden to be a hero for the city. He understands this is his responsibility. This is a power that was bestowed upon him, and it's his responsibility, and he knows by the events of this film she will get hurt if she is near him or if she's intertwined with his life. So he has to let that go. And just seeing her break down in that scene when he turns her down, for once I truly felt sorry for someone else in the film that wasn't the lead. And you're supposed to be following Peter Parker, and you're supposed to be rooting for him, and he's supposed to be that guide for the viewer. But no, in that scene, he kind of like transferred that feeling to MJ for a second, and it blew my mind. It made me feel so much emotion for everyone in the film, and it's a great film, guys. Go check it out. It's not that outdated. It's only like 20 years old now. But anyways, guys, that's my review of Spider-Man. Let me know down below, what do you think of this film? What's your favorite Spider-Man film out of all of them? Remember, stick around the channel. I'm going to be reviewing Spider-Man 2, 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 in the lead up to Tom Holland's third film, Spider-Man No Way Home, that comes out December 17th. So you might want to stick around, guys. There's a lot of content coming to the channel, and there's always more to come.